I could ask everybody to have a seat. We will get started on time. Yeah, I'm going to call names in a second. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Danville Regional Foundation, I'd like to welcome all of you to the Dan River region. My name is Carl Stauber, and I'm the President and CEO of the Danville Regional Foundation. And we're very excited that all of you could work this into your very, very busy schedules. And we know that at any time of year, everyone is busy, particularly at this time of year, everyone is busy. So why did we invite you? We invited you for kind of two overlapping set of reasons. One is all of you know part of the answer. All of you are working on solutions in either the communities that you live and work in or the institutions where you play a critical role. And so we wanted people that are working on progress and that are making progress and that are using analysis and data and best information possible to help us all see the way forward. But just as importantly, we invited all of you because we think you share the goals of this conference. If you look around the room, as you meet people over these 2 days, you're going to meet people who share a commitment to helping particularly isolated micropolitan regions have a different future. I was explaining to somebody earlier, one of the folks in the room earlier, those of us in Danville have more in common with Macon or Tupelo or Cedar Rapids than we do with what's going on in Richmond or Northern Virginia. Those of you that are from Macon have more in common with what's going on with the other communities in this room than you do with what's going on in Atlanta. Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, we could all go through this list. So we share a common effort, if you will, trying to help the micropolitan regions of the United States, and particularly the 9 that are represented in this room, to find better ways forward. So thank you for being part of that. We're here to exchange ideas, and we're here to exchange potential solutions. And so we encourage you to participate in that. We're here to help change a conversation in this country. For too long, most of the conversation about economic development in this country has been about the large metropolitan areas. And as of recent, there's been more conversation about rural, but that's a recent phenomenon. Micropolitan regions, for many in this country, their awareness of us is really non-existent. And so, as a friend of mine used to say to me, "Oh, you're in that place I go through on the way to the beach." Well, that's not a very good future for most of us. And we're going to work here to change that. We're here to identify what we can beg, borrow, steal, talk somebody into providing that will help us all make our work more successful. And we're also here to kind of identify the gaps. What's missing as we each do our important work in our places, in our institutions? What are the holes that we need to fill to be able to do this work more successfully. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in this process for the benefit of the 9 communities that are here, the 9 regions that are here, but I think it will go well beyond that. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my fellow conspirator and collaborator, Ted Abernathy. Ted?
It looks formal out here, and we're not trying to have a formal 2 days. We're actually trying to have a conversation. I described it. The video crew said, "So what's the format?" And I said, "Big old focus group. Bunch of people talking together and trying to figure it out." The 9 communities that are here up on the board, some smaller metros, some micros, southeast region of Ohio with a bunch of small cities that are changing. I picked pictures off the internet. They're all images I stole, so if you don't like yours, send me a new one. I'll put it in the final document. Carl said yesterday, "Don't you think we ought to have an image of all these people?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in Arkansas. Let me see if I can get that done before I get there tomorrow morning." So I'm glad we were able to do that. Think about the goal for the 2 days as collective intelligence. You know, we're in a world today where none of us can really understand everything that we're doing that's going on around us. We depend on other people. We depend on experts. We talk to them. We say, what's the best practice? And our firm spends a lot of time working in communities all over the country. And the first thing I get asked all the time, and sometimes I'm annoyed by it, is, well, who's doing it right? I want to copy them. And you know, as a consultant, you sort of go, well, okay, let's figure out you first, and then we'll figure that out. But the model is collective intelligence. The agenda for the 2 days is pretty simple. We're going to spend about 15 minutes this morning on a few of the trends that are making us all crazy, and a little bit of data about the people that are in the room. I apologize to the people in Southeast Ohio. You're not one place, so your data's different, and you're not on the charts the way everybody else is. Then we're going to do interviews. We got really lucky to get Bill and Alan and Andy to come and spend time with us. We're going to spend about 30 minutes with each of them talking about what they're seeing, having been in the field for quite a while. We're going to ask every community, if you read your emails, and I've been warned that some of you read emails and some of you don't read emails until the last minute, so yeah, y'all know who you are. If you're from a community, we're going to ask you to come up and somebody from your community to share 3 or 4 minutes with us about your community challenge. Then we're going to open it up. About half the room, and I don't know if y'all have looked at this, but this was intentional. Half the room here are community people, and about half the room are thought leaders or organizations that are involved in helping communities. And that was our balance. We wanted that from the very beginning of this, is to try to have a balance so there'd be a lot of people in the room who either fund, think, do right, do something. So we're going to ask some of those thought leaders on a volunteer basis. We don't have an order. We're going to ask you to come up and share a few things you're seeing in the field. We'll have some time this afternoon for reaction. We'll get you back to the hotel to change into better clothes for Two Witches Winery and Brewery and food trucks later on this evening, where we hope all of you will get a chance to meet and know each other. Tomorrow morning, we're doing a breakfast rotation with our 3 featured speakers so that you'll all get a chance to sit at a table and ask them specific questions. And it's a real treat to be able to do that. And then we'll debrief with them, a little bit of a panel discussion on what they've heard in the last 24 hours, what they may have been surprised by, or what they're hearing that sounds like what they hear around the country. There's a big open Q&A. And then we're going to do some mid-morning theme rotations. We're hopefully, across the course of the day and tonight, we're going to identify those issues that have risen up as the most problematic for you. And when we started this, we also said, well, can we cover everything? And so we haven't. We're not going to be able to cover everything. Not this one. Maybe we'll do another one next year and cover what we didn't do. But if we find out that revitalizing old buildings is something you want to talk about, or housing codes, or equity and inclusion, or workforce, or whatever pops up, We're going to try to raise those 6 issues, and then tomorrow morning we're going to do a roundtable with all of the experts in the room in those topics. We'll let y'all select, sitting at a table, we'll have a name on it, and be able to sit and talk. We're going to do 2 rotations. So if you got multiple people from your community, you want to spread them out, great. If there's only a couple of you, you'll have time to bounce around. Then we're going to go through early afternoon is the so what question, which is what we ask in all the communities we work in. All right, you know a bunch of stuff, you've got a lot of problems, so what? What are you going to do about it? And we're going to try to figure out as a group what the so whats are, and then figure out if there's a next step. Throughout the course of the day, we're going to do introductions, you to each other. And we're not going to go around the room, by the way. We timed it. If we gave you 45 seconds, we'd take the next hour and something doing introductions. So we're not doing that. We're hoping y'all will introduce yourselves to each other. I'm going to do just a couple introductions. You met Greg and Carly outside with our team, or me. Anything you need, you ask. If you don't have a hotel room at the Marriott, you can have mine, but that's the only one left. The Holiday Inn still has a few, I think. Linda Hoke's on the front row up here. So, hi, Linda. Linda's our scribe. Between Linda and the video crew, we are capturing everything. We're going to edit it all down, put it on YouTube so people can use it. So it's part of what we hope will be an ongoing discussion about small metros and micropolitans. For you, we have a few expectations. We expect engagement. If you want to be a passive listener and not say a word for 2 days, who am I? But that's not the goal. The goal is to get all of your thoughts along the way. I asked Carl if he wanted to do this role, and he said, nope. I want to participate. I want to be one of the people talking, and by the way, you have to be the time cop, and I don't want to be the bad guy. So I'm the time cop, which means if you get up and start on some long diatribe about your problems, I'm going to have to cut you off. So forgive me now for being a jerk about it, but it'll happen. So think about, try to keep your comments in the minute 2 range so that we can try to get as many as possible. But the rest of our expectations are that you meet each other, you talk to each other, you learn from each other, you identify some things along the way. Over on the side, we have 3 flip charts. They're basically asking 3 questions that we'd like you to write on. What do you want to know? What don't you know that you want to know? Because there's a report probably that answers almost every question, or there's someone in the room who knows most of those answers. You did surveys for us, and we asked you what you wanted to know, and you gave us all sorts of things that you thought might be there, and we're going to put a bunch of them in the share file. We also asked you where you got your information. There's a lot of things, we'll put all that in the share file. What's working for you? What are the best practices out there? And then the third chart is, what are your metrics of success? And this is a discussion we have with the Danville Regional Foundation and lots of others. When we asked you what your metrics of success were, some of you said jobs and investment. You gave the traditional economic development answer. Some of you said streetscapes and beautification. Some of you said citizen engagement. Some of you said bike lanes, environmentally friendly. We went on and on. There are lots of metrics of success. And a lot of small communities, if they're compared to, if you're in Wilson in North Carolina and the question is, did you have as much investment as Charlotte? The answer is no. Does that make you a failure? No. How do you measure success? We'd love for you to, there's markers beside it, just write us some notes on there. We want to capture it as the day goes on. After the conference, we're going to put everything on YouTube. We're going to put in the share files data on all of your communities that we've collected along the way. I'm going to share a little bit with you in a minute. We're going to put as many articles and books and other things that you've suggested or we've heard throughout this there so that you have a resource library that somebody's culled for you before you start. And I don't know what your desk looks like. I'm a bit of a data geek and junkie, and my desk has this pile sitting on the side of it that it should say to read, and every now and then I get to get a little of it, but every day 42 new reports come out and I'm behind. So we're going to try to cull those down and give you something to look at. We're on Twitter, Home of Future Thinking, HoFT 2017, tweet today. We'd like this to go broader than this group today. We know there were some people who wanted to come who can't, who've asked for copies of the videos, which we will do and give to them, but also maybe there's a few people that'll follow us on Twitter today. So tweet from your room or Snapchat or do whatever y'all want to do today to widen this. Is there a burning question in the room before we start with some trends and data? I'm going to make sure everybody's comfortable. Okay, you're not going to be shy as the day goes on, right? Okay, just making sure. So we ask groups all the time one simple question to start these kind of presentations, which is, how's your economy? And we ask for votes. And so I'd like to see in your, first let's ask how the US economy is. And I'd like you to give it a grade, A, B, C, D, or F. And then our second question is going to be your local economy. So how's the US economy? A's, B's, C's, D's. No cynics in the room? Charles is a cynic. Okay, good. I knew that already, though. F's. Your local economy. A's. There you go. B's. C's. D's. F's. Y'all were afraid if you voted F, I was going to call on you and ask, weren't you? Yeah, I would have. It'll be all right. So here's the question I want you to keep in mind the rest of the day. What were you thinking? This is part of what we do with economies. Were you thinking unemployment rate? Were you thinking how many cranes were on the skyline? Were you thinking about the economic vitality on the streets at night? Were you thinking about wages, equality? What were you thinking? Because when we go out and talk to communities, they're all thinking different things when you ask them the economy question. If you ask them how the stock market is, well, it's at a record high. If you ask them how job growth has been, we're at 84 months, the longest continuous growth. If you ask them how many boarded up buildings they have downtown or whether people can afford their health care or whatever it is, it's a different answer. So for the 2 days we're here, we want you to think broadly about that question. What does the economy mean? What does it mean in your community to have a good economy? You know, the world's changed awful fast. Back in 2003, not that long ago, none of those things on the board existed. Nobody had LinkedIn or Facebook. There was no YouTube or Twitter. The iPhone's 10 years old this year. And most people in the room, just looking around, most of you were around in 2003. Some of you were working. A few of you were, in high school. I got it, but it's all right. The world changed a bunch on us. And as such, when we went into and out of this last recession, one of the themes that we see with a lot of data is winners and losers, both people and places. That we're not even, I don't think we ever were, but we see it a little more acutely today. And we're in this world of hyper-competitiveness, where communities are fighting over what they see as limited resources. They're fighting for new population, they're fighting for new investment, they're fighting for higher wage jobs. They might be fighting for Amazon, whatever they've chosen to fight for this week. And we know that there are lots of factors that people survey, and they think that availability of skilled labor is the #1 issue. But there are a lot of issues, and you know that people are competing. When we look around, we see big issues that are just paralyzing us on a policy level. We see inequity, we see urban-rural divides, skills gaps, technology disruption, wage stagnation, affordable housing challenges, globalization's impacts, demographic shifts. We're arguing about the role, the value, the focus, and delivery of education. We're talking about placemaking, even in the smallest communities. And a lot of places around America are talking about their public resources, their responsibilities, their debt, and the choices they're going to make. And when you put all of that together, it makes your head hurt. And sometimes it paralyzes us, and we don't know what to do next. So just a couple slides on some of those big issues. We talk about sort of the urbanization or the urban advantage today. And we've all seen data slides that show that metros, and mostly big metros, are growing fast. And if you're non-metropolitan, you're not growing at all. The two best slides I've seen this year come out of the University of Virginia. This is 2000 to 2005. This is all the 3,100 counties in the United States. If you're any color but blue up there, you're growing your workforce between 2000 and 2005. Your workforce is growing at some level. 10 years later, it looks like that. So most counties are growing, and after 10 years, most counties are challenged to expand their workforce. And you end up with this sort of unevenness that happens around the country, and this one's become the most famous map I see in policy circles, that half of America now lives in the purple, the dark purple counties. So we are, and this is getting more acute, not less. More and more density in fewer places. And what do we do about that? Most popular topic the last 2 years probably is woe is me, the robots are coming. It's a lot of fun to talk about. We talk about manufacturing looking like this today. And there are 2 people in those slides. It takes a few minutes to find them, and I'm not going to give you those minutes. The death of manufacturing, except that manufacturing output's higher than it's ever been. In fact, it's up 56% since the days of NAFTA in the mid-90s, and yet we need fewer people. And technology is changing all of our work. Today, we're having trouble finding skilled trained workers, and we're finding that machinery and automation get to replace some of those in construction or agriculture or food prep or home health, where we're growing. And then we're watching change hit, and we're seeing sensors in Industry 4.0, and we're seeing autonomous vehicles in 3 and 4D printing. We're watching how robotics now have both sight and dexterity, and advanced materials are completely changing the world. We're embedding technology, and retail has moved into this augmented reality world that maybe is going to change us forever. We'll see. And then if it wasn't urban, rural, or technological displacement, the topic of the year has been talent. And how do you find the skills that you need? Population's been shrinking for the growth in new working age people. So there's fewer of us hitting the labor market. Unemployment is low, and lots of places are really strapped for people. We know that the jobs have changed. If you're routine in either manual or cognitive, there's not job growth. But if you're non-routine, there is. So the bar keeps going up. We know that the credentials are there. There's 28% of the jobs today need 2 or 4 year degrees, but that end of the spectrum is growing faster than the other end. And so more and more people are going to need higher and higher quantified credentials, whether they're BAs or certificates or whatever. We can have that debate. And so we end up with lots of challenges. We have common ones that we're dealing with in every community in this room, but they're a little different. So we did just to show you that while you have many things alike, you have a few differences. For the people here, again, apologies to Ohio, but for the people here, this is your regional population numbers. Hickory is the largest, but it's a whole group of cities, so we'll see how they get in there. And Wilson and Danville are the smallest. If you look at population growth, about half the people in the room are not growing and the other half are. And we'll put all of this in your share file along with a bunch more data. If you look at the population over 60, the low is about 20%, the high is close to 30%. Some of our communities here are getting pretty long in the tooth. 10-year job growth for your states that you represent, and then for your communities. So goes the state, doesn't so go every community, right? And that lends itself to its own political issues at the state level. Some of you are clearly manufacturing communities, and some of you aren't. So every community like you is not actually like you. Y'all get jobs a little bit differently. Some of you have a whole bunch of people with a bachelor's degree, and some of you have a whole lot less. And your job markets probably reflect some of that. And some of you have racial diversity in big ways, and some of you don't. We didn't engineer this. We invited about 20 communities and got about 10 like we hoped for. So we didn't pick the fact that y'all would all be a little different, but you turned out to be a whole lot of different. And that's pretty good. For those of you from not the South, a whole lot of difference, just the way we talk. It's okay. Some places have higher poverty levels than others. In fact, some of you had 3 times poverty levels of others. And we looked at children poverty, and we looked at racial poverty, and we have, again, all of that stuff. And then we also looked at what your expectations were going forward, and we'll put all of that in the file